Let's go to PHNX Factor. We all know who it is, so we might as well just rip the Band-Aid off. Maybe.
Let's just slowly pull it off
in a second.
Nick, gonna give it to you.
Boom. There it is. Nick Richards is the PHNX Factor today. And if it wasn't for Cade and Book going off, he could have been the star. 21 points, plus 22 on a plus minus in a 4-point game, 11 rebounds, 4 of those being offensive, 7 of 8 from the field, 7 of 9 from the free throw line. Steven, what was the most impressive thing you saw from the first ever Phoenix Suns debut where the player came off the bench and dropped 20 and 10?
It was the motor, but the motor in tandem with his presence. I think Espo just hit on a lot of it. This is not a game the Suns would have won last week. And it's not because they wouldn't have had a counter to the resistance that they were met with from Jalen Durant and Isaiah Stewart in that third quarter. Nick Richards comes in, and where Mason Plumlee was getting pushed around, not being able to execute, he's able to not just execute, but dictate back to those two in particular, being Durant and Stewart, to the point where his presence on the game, he spent a lot of minutes where it was usually one of them, Stewart or Durant, was on the court, and he finished the game, what was his plus
22.
Plus 22.
Plus 22.
Jeez.
That says everything. He wasn't out there going against scrubs in any capacity. And his impact was felt. He was a big piece on why they sparked the comeback that they did after the resistance they were met with, and he was the X factor, quite literally.
And that's the great part for me looking at this performance, is it didn't feel like he was doing anything too out of the ordinary.
Yep.
You know, he wasn't like facing up, driving by dudes and dunking on them. He wasn't, coming in for these outrageous offensive putback slam dunks. Like, it was kind of a tame game in terms of actual highlights for him, but he just did the things that the Suns have needed from their center spot. He crashed the offensive glass. He was there in the dunker spot to finish efficiently. He did have that one kind of crazy underhanded lay-in on the and one that was maybe a little bit outside of what you would normally expect. But in terms of what he did, he just went out there and did his job. And that's why he was able to fit in so quickly without knowing a lot of the sets that they run or, the things that they run on either end of the court. But by being athletic, by being a big body, by being someone who can finish around the rim and contest shots on the other end, he was able to have an immediate impact. And that's why we were saying, so what? He was the backup center on the Charlotte Hornets. You put him in a better context, that's the type of player whose limited skill set can really help with what you're trying to do.
Can we talk about the pick and roll, or the Nick and roll, as I'm going to call it?
You can do whatever you want
from now on.
Sure.
It's actually present now with the Phoenix Suns. Tyus had, I think, probably 3 assists off of running that with Nick Richards. The crazy end one that you talked about came off of a pick and roll. There was one with Cade that was a nice pass. Like, this is the simple things that we talked about that he could have a big impact on. It's just being a roller that you can trust and that the defense has to stay honest with, right? And he succeeded in that. To your point, there wasn't a lot that he played outside of his game tonight. He just did the things that we all said that he was going to be good at, including trying to protect at the rim. Now, some of the rotations weren't great, for the team as a whole, and it led to him being a little over aggressive and them getting dunks. That stuff they'll work on in terms of defensive communication. But what he was able to do in terms of pick and roll and then his aggressiveness at the rim defensively, I don't think those are things that change. Will he have 20 and 10 every night? No, he won't have 20 and 10 every night, but he'll still do those little things that'll have a big impact on the game.
And you don't need him to do 20 and 10 every night. You needed it tonight, and Detroit's a good team. A couple people mentioning, why was this a close game? A lot of people, they pay attention to their favorite team, especially not ones in the other conference. Detroit's a big, physical, athletic team that has given the Phoenix Suns fits before this season, and Nick Richards was a great counter to that. Funny enough for me, 2 of the most impressive things about his game don't actually come from what I saw on the court that were positives. One comes from the negatives, which was the fact that their chemistry is clearly not there. Whether it was the fast break that Cade whiffed the pass to him, right? Whether it was Nick Richards getting a block on what eventually was a Ryan Dunn foul when Ryan Dunn wasn't really used to having somebody back there who could block it. Whether it was the first pick that was a little awkward that he set for Cade. Like, this is still a team learning each other's tendencies. I don't even know if they've had a practice together, right? So You walk into that's impressive that there's room for improvement, not just in how you scored, how you got your rebounds, but what other opportunities you missed. And number 2 is take a look at our chat. Go on social media. Look about just the conversation revolving around the Phoenix Suns. I think it's pretty safe to say that we were about as close to rock bottom as you can get. And if you weren't there, you were sniffing it.
Yeah.
And you're now at this point where you see a path. You see a path towards problems being fixed. They still need to fix a lot of things that are outside of Nick Richards, but he brings hope to a team and to a fan base that has been desperately searching for it all season.
He plugs some of the issues you had, right? Rebounding, you feel a little bit better about. Defensively, you're going to feel a little bit better about, and the athleticism. I still think that they need to go out and get another big, potentially a pick and pop that gives you another look that's different. Because we've seen, I don't think that that you can trust the rest of this rotation. Oso and Plumlee. Oso you can in short minutes or specific, kind of matchups, but I still think you need a big that can rebound and pick and pop that you don't have. And there's still other areas where they're going to have to clean up. Yeah, they beat Detroit. People are like, well, why'd you only beat Detroit by 4 when you had a big performance by Nick Richards? Because A, the Pistons are better, but B, the Suns still have things to figure out.
Nope.
This was like we've talked about. This is not a one size fits all. Everything's fine. You're gonna see. You're gonna get a big test on Monday and see how that goes.
We all silly like the mayor.